was in initiation. So in these focus groups, we found that 2 in 3 of our participants had actually tried e-cigarettes. And pretty much all of them described the experience as very pleasant. They all kind of really liked the experience. So in these bubbles, we've got some quotations which were drawn out from our focus group discussions. So, some participants mentioned all the different range of flavors of e-cigarettes and how that was very appealing to them. So here's a quote from one who says, "If you got a lot of flavors, then you won't be bored." So it's that novelty, right? And then another one had said it's more fun because, of the different designs and, these kind of techie kind of designs and things. Another one had said it doesn't feel so serious, so me and my friends will do it more freely. So this again is related to this idea that e-cigarettes are often marketed as being much less harmful than cigarettes, and therefore, they don't feel like they're doing any harm. Yeah, even though we don't really know what the long-term harms are. Then some in those focus group discussions, some had also mentioned that they actually use e-cigarettes and flavored cigarettes at the same time, so they would alternate between the two products. And the reason why they liked to choose flavored cigarettes was also because of the range of flavors, and it was the same with e-cigarettes. Some participants also mentioned some concerns about vaping. So some of them said that it was hard for them to control how much nicotine they were taking in when they were vaping. So one participant says, "I can go on puffing for an entire hour, and the amount of nicotine I've taken in is vastly more." Yeah, so it was hard for them to control their intake. And another participant said, "I think vape is very shock, but then the problem with vape is that it's technically illegal." Yeah, so they raised concerns about, the fact that if they wanted to vape, they would have to maybe vape at home or in some place where they were unlikely to get caught. We also asked questions about how did they manage to get hold of vapes or e-cigarettes, because, the fact that it is illegal in Singapore and that Singapore has very strict penalties not only on selling e-cigarettes, but also on possession and use. But actually, they mentioned that it was surprisingly easy to get hold of them. Everyone seemed to know somebody who knows somebody, so most of them got it through friends or friends of friends who then knew someone. Or they just bought them online. So some participants had mentioned, oh, you can just go on Telegram or Instagram even, you could just get it from Easy Buy. Yeah, so they were, getting e-cigarettes in Singapore was surprisingly easy despite the measures. As for flavored cigarettes, so I've done a number of studies on flavored cigarettes in Singapore. So we've studied the market, and what we found is that of all of the cigarettes that are sold in Singapore, even today, around half of them are flavored, right? And this is massive proportion when you compare to other countries. So just to put it into perspective, these are like the countries with the biggest flavored cigarette markets in the world. As a proportion of the total market. So you can see here in like Philippines, Thailand, these kind of countries, out of all the cigarettes sold, roughly a quarter to a third are flavored. Where in Singapore, which is this red line at the top, it's around half. So it's a huge market in Singapore. In our surveys of adult smokers, so the survey that I mentioned a few slides ago, we also asked about their use of flavored cigarettes. And what we found is that those who are using flavored cigarettes in Singapore are more likely to be younger in age, so typically in their 20s or 30s. They tend to be less dependent on nicotine, so they fit the profile of a younger person who's maybe, not smoking as much, or who maybe started smoking more recently. In terms of ethnicity, we saw some patterns. So those who use flavored cigarettes are more likely to be of Chinese or Malay ethnicity as opposed to Indian. And we also saw a higher rate of flavored cigarette use among the females. So these products seem to appeal more to females. And some of the reasons why these flavored cigarettes appeal more to these people was because they said it's smoother, so it's not as harsh on their throat. It tastes better. And also that they were, the flavored cigarettes created less of an obnoxious smell. So it was, more appeasing to the people around them. We also, in our focus group discussions, we asked the youth smokers about their use of flavored cigarettes and the role that this might have had in their initiation of smoking. And what we found is that most of the youth smokers we spoke to had started with flavored cigarettes. And the reason was, first of all, they were just interested in all the different flavors. So one of them had said here, I was interested to try because of the flavor, like it's quite unique, you know, so they were drawn to, you know, the different kinds of flavors that were out there. So it's not just mint and menthol, but we've also got cigarettes on the market with like fruit flavor, like grape or berries. So they were, you know, drawn to that. Another had said, I was intrigued by the smell, so I just tried. And then, you know, we asked them why do they continue to use flavored cigarettes? And, you know, many of them had commented on the fact that flavored cigarettes, opposed to the regular ones, are just easier to smoke. So when they talked about regular cigarettes, like non-flavored ones, like your Marlboro Reds, for example, they said, you know, they described them as choky and harsh and like it made them cough. Whereas the menthol cigarettes, especially, they said it's less choky, easy to smoke. Yeah. And they also mentioned that they taste much better. And then as far as the capsule cigarettes go, so those are the ones with the capsule and the filter, participants commented that they liked the novelty and also that they liked the fact that they could control the intensity of the flavor. So it was that on-demand appeal. And we've also been studying the cigarette market in Singapore and just to see what's out there today. So what we actually did, we did a study where we bought one pack of every single brand and variant that we could find. And we analyzed them in terms of, you know, the flavors and the designs and all of this, just to get a sense of the market and how these products are marketed to people in Singapore. So what we found is that, you know, Singapore's cigarette market is very heavily dominated by flavored cigarettes. And what we're also seeing is a big growth in capsule cigarettes. So when we think of a typical brand like Marlboro, which is like a very typical brand, it's you know, as you can see, it's a big brand. There are lots of variants, a good maybe 15 to 20 of them. And what we can see is there's a huge difference in all of the types of variants that are sold. So if you look at the top left here, the two packs at the top left are the red ones. So these are the only regular non-flavored cigarettes that Marlboro has. The others are light cigarettes, which are you know, positioned as being less harmful, even though their harm level is actually the same. And then all of the ones underneath, these are all flavored variants. So in the middle row, these are all like, you can see they're color coded with like greenish blue colors. So actually the tobacco companies pick these color coding because it gives the perception that the product is less harmful. Because actually in psychological tests using color, they find that you know, people rate like cool, greenish blue, also pale colors as less harmful. So that's why also the light cigarettes are packaged in like blue and light blue and also light gold color. Yeah. And then what we see here on the bottom, these are the capsule cigarettes. So these are the ones with that crushable flavor capsule in the filter. As you can see, they are marketed in more kind of bright, neon-like, metallic, and kind of clubby colors. Yeah, and the colors often correspond to the flavor. So here we have a one with menthol and lemon. These are two minty ones. The purple one is usually a grape or a berry flavor, and then the bluish ones are usually like a different kind of mint. And then when we take together all of the variants on the market, not just the Marlboro brand, but all of the different brands, what we see is that the vast majority of them are flavored, right? So the capsule and the menthol and menthol lights categories, these are all the flavored cigarettes. So it's about 2/3 of the variants on the market. And then a smaller proportion, I would say about 20%. This is the red slice of the pie chart. Those are just your regular non-flavored cigarettes. So what we think of as like regular cigarettes actually makes up quite a small proportion of Singapore's market. So the take-home messages that I have. So first of all, when it comes to vaping, what we found in our research here in Singapore is that even though Singapore has very strict measures against vaping, that it still appeals to young people here to some extent. And especially, you know, what we found concerning is that they were able to procure them so easily through friends and online even. So, you know, what that shows is that we do still need tougher curbs on online e-cigarette purchase and also maybe person-to-person purchase. And also more public education is needed, because what we found was there's quite a few misperceptions among these young people around, you know, the harm of e-cigarettes. Many of them just thought it was kind of harmless, especially compared to cigarettes. So more public education is needed on the subject for sure. Now, when it comes to flavored cigarettes, what we found is that the cigarette flavors definitely encourage smoking initiation, and especially the menthol and fruity flavors, we found that were quite appealing among those young people. So there's a need in Singapore to start regulating tobacco flavors. A number of countries, including the European Union, have actually banned flavored cigarettes, including menthols, and I think that this is the next step in Singapore, regulation speaking. And also it's important to start regulating design novelties like these crushable capsules in the filters. Okay, so that's all I have. Thanks for listening. And again, apologies for the technical issues. I hope that you managed to see all my slides in the end. So I'm open to any questions you have.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Anyone who has a question, you may contact the chat groups